Hey everybody, this is Vulva Views with your hosts Amy Novat and Allison Chawla. Listen, if you like what you hear today, please give us 5 stars and leave comments and share with friends and family. We would love to hear from you. We'd also like to hear if there's something you want Allison and me to talk about. Please write to comments@radiofreerhinecliffe.org or gynocurious@gmail.com. Again, we would love to hear from you. Today, Allison and I are talking about menstrual cycles and being moms to girls who go through this experience. So welcome to Vulva Views today. Hey, Allison, how are you?
I'm doing very well.
Great.
I'm running around barefoot because it's the first nice day, and that's how I get all my grounding in for the next few months.
Ooh, I like that. Your toes into the dirt.
Everything. Even the cement. Even if there's a little like sharp rock, strangely, I find there to be something very pleasurable about that.
So even though we are talking on April 8th and it's not going to be dropped for, several weeks, I just want to honor that it's a big day today in the world.
Yes, so exciting.
Yeah, solar eclipse.
Big deal. And I'm so grateful for the honor that it's getting from school districts and the news. You know, I remember the last time I saw one, which must have been 20 years ago, if I remember. Mm-hmm. But nobody but my parents were paying attention, as far as I was aware from that perspective. But it is getting so much attention and honor. People are traveling up north from New York. We're pretty north to see this thing.
Huge. I have a friend in Buffalo, and she was saying basically governments are closing down, schools are closing down, that hoteliers cancel people's reservations in order to price gouge and get people to pay more.
Hey.
So, capitalism at its best, but it's a spiritual time.
For
which,
sure.
I like that people are kind of pausing and taking in.
Yes, and I thank you for mentioning the spiritual element, because that is what strikes me the most. And, I'm very affected, whether or not a scientist wants to say it's the gravitational pull is shifting or the barometric pressure, whatever it is. I'm very affected by the changes of the moon cycle. And so this is how I speak to my kids. Oh, I use the word cycle. No
like
pun.
Moon,
Look at that.
moon,
and
moon,
cycle.
moon.
But that it's getting that attention. And
Indeed.
I think, even if you don't think you're affected, you're feeling something, and it's better to be out of work and out of school.
This is the collective unconscious,
Yes,
right?
and making it a positive experience for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, I have to talk about a little bit about the euphemisms that I've been coming across. And, I hear all kinds of verbiage in the office around what the menstrual cycle is called. And I was kind of curious, so I kind of went online and read the following.
Oh, God.
And these are just a short list of what I
Please.
came across. The big red bus.
Oh, God.
Strawberry fields. Moon time, which is, of course, today is, moon and earth and sun. Time of the month, which is what my mother called it. And Bloody Mary.
What about, do you remember when people would say, ragging it?
Oh, on the rag.
I'm ragging it.
I really
Good
don't
grief.
like that one.
It's terrible. Although I probably said it as a teenager thinking I was being cool and funny at the time, but ragging it.
I'm not sure you and I were exposed to anything other than that.
Yeah,
Time of the month was what my mother called it because she was a very proper speaker.
Riding the crimson wave.
Oh, that's a good one too. Yeah. There's, I don't know whether to be honored, as a woman to know that there's all of this poetry around
it. Right.
Poetry.
Well, they say good, any attention is good attention. I don't know if that applies to this, but it's a lot.
It's so interesting. Well, I guess if 51% of us are going to go through this experience, then I guess it's going to generate a lot of conversation behind the scenes.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
And that's why we're here today on Vulva Views, to bring it into the scene.
Indeed. Behind the scenes and in the middle school locker rooms.
So you have 2 daughters.
I sure do.
And may I ask, have 1 and or 2 gone through this pubertal shift yet?
So no one has gotten their period yet, but I am watching other things change in the older one. Mm-hmm. And it's really funny because my husband is my husband is the child of an OBGYN. And the sibling of an OBGYN. So for him, this stuff is like dinner talk. So he'll see our older one come down the stairs and he'll be like, "Good morning. The flowers are blooming. Things are growing." And she's just like, "Oh my God, Dad." But it's really nice. I mean, she could say to him, "Dad, I got my period. Can we go to the store and get some tampons when the time comes?" So it's a beautiful blessing.
So great.
But we're not there yet, but I think it's coming. So I have started to stock up and have some conversations.
Yeah. It's such an incredibly interesting mixture of feelings and physical events around, what's called the menarche, the first menstrual cycle. And, the beauty is the ritual of it, the fact that we all go through it, and that it can be celebrated.
Absolutely.
There are period parties these days.
I intend to take her out, both of them, for in a celebration of whatever form they want that to look like. I'm not going to throw a party, but like if she wants to go get her nails done or a spa day, we're going to do that. We're going to celebrate that.
Indeed, indeed. It's funny when I think back on my daughter, who's now 25, and when she got her first period, and I offered that. Actually, I had a circle of women friends who were kind of older and wanted to have kind of a white witch ceremony.
The red tent ladies.
She was absolutely, no way. No way. And then, I don't know if she would remember this, but I remember several months after she got her first period, I found this little slip of like a piece of paper, ragged around the edges, and it just said, "I hate puberty." Aw, I know.
I think most people don't, most people have a problem with that transition.
It's not an easy one.
No.
I mean, I hate to be graphic, but when you have blood coming out of your vagina every month and you have to find all those tampons and pads and think about what you're wearing and where you're going, this is an interruption.
It's a lot of work. Yeah. And I think that's something that people don't realize is the amount of time and the thought process that goes into preparing for your period every month.
Yeah.
It's just sort of, in your psyche floating around constantly.
It is. And imagine if your periods are tough. Painful.
Mine were horrible.
Mine were horrible too.
Even the few weeks off that I would get, I would be anticipating and dreading the arrival of the next.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was raised in a house where you didn't talk about things hurting. You didn't talk about illness. My mother was of the sort who said, unless you're dying or have a temperature of 104, you're going to school.
Yeah, mine was like that.
So there was no rest for the weary, but did I eat a lot of Motrin in those days.
Oh, golly. Yes. My mother, fortunately, she was very ill when I got my period, but she had very difficult periods as well. So as soon as I said, "I have a cramp," she was kind of like, "Get to the store right now, go to CVS, get some, So it was known that I needed help.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think my mother, I don't know. Maybe my mother was pregnant a lot, so she had 4 children, and and she nursed, and so maybe there weren't a lot of years of having difficult periods. Or if she had them, she never admitted to it.
Yeah. Wow, yeah. So interesting.
Yeah, which is helpful to me in that I've had different conversations with my daughter.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good on you.
It's interesting how this, again, kind of universal biological experience is so hush-hush.
Yes, it is. And right as you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, are my daughter's friends talking about it openly? And I know the kids who have their periods, so on some level it's being discussed. But there's definitely still like this hush-hush. Don't tell them I told you. Don't say it out loud. Like, and I can see why based on the things we were calling it, like ragging it and, the energy it has around it. But it's such a normal thing.
I can't help but wonder, if something like this were to happen to men. It's just curiosity, and it's just an interesting, would it be so taboo? Would it be so private? I don't know. I really don't know the answer.
I don't think so. And it's as you were saying that, I was thinking about a gentleman I was observing this weekend that was adjusting his genitalia over and over again in his pants. And at one point I thought, okay, you have a penis and a scrotum. We all know. Like, stop touching the goddamn thing in front of everybody. But I don't think there would be shame, because think about moments like that. You know, and if I were to say, what the hell are you doing? It would have been like, what do you mean? I'm adjusting probably something like my dick or something charming like that.
Oh my God, I'm holding in the cracking up here because I may not stop. It's so true. And, you know, it's I don't know. There's just such an interesting blend of this being so private. And then this is we're talking about your girls who are growing up in the world of social media where so much is out there, right? And when I think about like products for menstrual cycles these days, there is an abundance. We're talking about panties that you can wear during a menstrual cycle.
I can't get those. That's kind of, I don't know. I don't get it. I find them, I don't want to offend anybody, but kind of gross.
Women I know who use them love them.
Really? Okay, so I need to be more
them.
open-minded. It's just me projecting because of my use of tampons. That's my preferred solution.
Yeah.
So maybe I should go get a pair and put them in the house in case Indy gets it, or she.
It's, an opportunity. I don't know. It's interesting to all of a sudden have all these choices. When I first got my period, the only thing available were those horrible belts that you attached to a
giant pad.
Giant pad. There wasn't even an array of sizes. And it was a total diaper. And it was awful. It was just awful.
It's like that mesh underwear they give you after you have childbirth.
I know.
Remember that? I wrote an article about that for Huffington
did?
Post. Yeah, and then what's her name? It's the beautiful, tall model who has just John Legend's wife, Chrissy.
Oh, Chrissy. What is her last name? I know exactly what you're talking
someone
about.
wrote an article about her and mentioned my article in it because apparently no one wanted to talk about this. And then I wrote about the mesh underwear and other things you don't know after childbirth. But it feels like the same thing.
It is not dissimilar.
By the way, for those of you about to give childbirth, take the mesh underwear home. As a matter of fact, if the drawer is in the room, steal extra ones and put them in your bag. They're really useful.
They are very useful.
Just terrifying to look at.
They're disposable. That's the point.
Thank God.
Yeah. So, I was thinking about also, when do we get our first periods? And it's variable. And as Allison was mentioning, there are events that happen prior to the onset of the period. Those physical changes like breast buds and breast development. All of a sudden there's hair in the pubic region and under the arms. And that these things kind of are the forecasters.
Yes. And yes, I don't want to say. It's funny for me, I was a very late bloomer.
How old?
I didn't get my period until I was 15.
Oh, yeah, that is a bit older.
Yes. I was also a dancer, so maybe my level of athleticism had something to do with it, but I was also flat-chested until I was like 14 and a half. So I think it was just my DNA. I was the tall, skinny, flat-chested kid. And I was so sad that I didn't get it till 15 at the time because I felt left out. But now when I look at my daughter, who's not even 13 yet and doesn't have it yet, I just think, gosh, I hope it holds off because she's a baby.
Isn't it remarkable? Yes. I know. I just love that. It's like I don't know, I guess I'll say it like a microscope or a telescope. When we're that age, we have the focus on, I just want to be older. I just want to be older. And now that we're looking at our daughters, we just want to say,
slow
down. Slow down.
Just even for her psychological experience of developing and growing, that's a big deal to get your period.
Huge.
There's so many meanings behind it that you've been hearing. You're a woman. You can have babies. It's a big deal. I know.
Sex.
Yeah, you can get pregnant.
Yeah, indeed.
That's the stuff I'm sort of, I'm kidding myself to think she's not thinking about it already or just hearing it. But I want her to just take it slow.
I know.
All of it.
The terminology that's often used in like the medical literature is sexually mature.
Oh, it's the mature thing that puts the pressure and the desire to reach that.
Exactly.
Mature.
Exactly. Yeah, it's confusing. Whew, is it confusing?
Very.
There are a lot of interesting things, but one thing I wanted to mention was that girls are having their periods, unlike your daughter, earlier now in the U.S.
Absolutely. And that is another phenomenon that I was going to mention, so thank you for jumping on it. There are third and fourth graders menstruating.
I know.
Why is it OBGYN? Do you have any explanation behind that? I just wondered if it was maybe the hormones in food or what is. Yes, that's part
what
of it.
That's what we think. We don't know for sure, but the hypothesis is, well, there are several. One, that the exposure to what we call exogenous estrogens.
Okay.
So that's hormones that are outside of our
And they're
body.
coming in. Okay.
That coming in. So our food, the stuff we put on the ground, as so-called fertilizers, what happens to plastic bottles, when they're heated up and then we drink water,
Right.
There are chemicals there that act as they impact our hormonal milieu.
Pay attention to what she's saying. Don't drink out of your water bottle after it is sat in a hot car.
Yeah.
Just get rid of it. I always tell I'd say that. Don't drink that. Now there's chemicals in there because it's gotten so hot.
Right. If you, in fact, can drink out of glass,
Please do that.
Try to do that. And again, avoid the sun, heating up that water.
It's just wild. These little girls. I mean, I see them, and even their bodies look. I look at them, and when they say, "Yeah, she got her period already," I look at the little body, and I'm like, "Well, yeah, I can kind of see that, but like, what are you feeding these kids?"
Yeah. The other problem is obesity. That we have a pandemic of obesity in young.
I know. Yeah.
Men and women, girls and boys, I should say. And when you carry extra weight, you store these hormones. You have more estrogen in your body fat. And so that is creating a different hormonal environment too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's just these little kid with the boobs, and it's I'm like, kids eating Chef Boyardee right out of the can.
Yeah.
So you can see that it's not natural, is what I'm saying. That it's influenced by something external.
Right. There is the occasional person or occasional girl whose mother, grandmother, sister, aunt, everybody had their periods early. But when in my day, when you said someone got it early, they might have been maybe 8 or 9. Now it's kind of normal for girls to get it between 8 and 13. And so, we might be talking about, when we talk about early, we talk about precocious. They might be 6 or 7. It's just daunting.
Maybe I shouldn't be having this reaction, but it's upsetting to me.
Yeah.
I just don't think they're ready to understand and deal with that, the poor kids.
Yeah, speak to the psychology, right?
Yes. It's a bit of a jump in developmental psychology. And they manage it, but most certainly that marker does have an influence and an effect on the way they move forward.
Yeah. And, think about how it might be if you're that age, but even 8, if 8 is considered normal these days, think about being an 8-year-old. What grade would you be in?
You would be in 3rd grade because my daughter is 9. Mm-hmm. She is in 3rd grade, but we gave her an extra year of preschool just for like emotional support.
Right.
And she's a baby.
So think about if your period comes at 8.
I cannot even
and
process
you've developed
that.
Breasts before then and hair before then, and you go on a sleepover party and everybody's getting into their PJs without any hesitation because nudity at that age is,
still pretty normal and funny and silly.
And you're worried about it. Or some boy at school is making jokes about that, and you don't have the emotional, intellectual capacity.
It's devastating. And that's the stuff I want to speak on at some point during this talk, so to sort of to give support, but that's a big deal. I remember a little girl that I knew, she had breasts in like the 3rd grade, full on breast, and I remember most of the girls were envious because again we're waiting for that maturity so we can become women, and she tried to go with the flow of giggles, but they would call her Mountain Missy.
Oh.
And I know that it was devastating and embarrassing. And I remember cringing and my shoulders rising when I would hear it and then just kind of like chuckling it off because she was laughing. But to have to face that, and that there's a real sexual energy, innuendo there. It's there no matter what you think. It's
That's
there. Right. To have to process that and kind of suppress that during your school day, on the playground. That's why I want to encourage parents to talk.
Truly.
Talk about it all.
Put it out there. Be open. Use correct physical terms. Reassure these young folks that, again, it's normal. And despite it being normal, that there's still all of this shaming that goes on, and just support, give confidence to these kids or these girls particularly, and teach our boys not to make fun of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was girls too, but mostly, boys that were probably really interested in the breasts. Like, whoa, look at those. Nobody else has those except my mom or my aunt, whoever it may be. So I understand why the attention comes, but to be respectful.
Absolutely.
Well, what would you, as an OBGYN, tell? I'm sure you've had some young women getting their period and you treating them. Did you give like advice about protecting themselves emotionally, socially?
Not as much as I guess I would say I want, in that often they're not interested in talking about that parameter.
I see.
So girls will come to the office for a couple of reasons. One, either because they're really young and getting their period, and they're like, and their mother and the girl is saying, "What is going on?" And those girls are tested for problems that might cause that, what we call precocious puberty.
Okay.
Then there's the girls who are coming in who are saying, my periods suck, they're painful, they're heavy, I'm constantly bleeding, I don't know what's going on. So it's kind of the dysfunction of the bleeding.
I see.
And less about the emotional contour. But again, actually, then there's the third cohort, but they tend to present later. Those are the girls who are coming in at 17 or 18 saying, I'm really depressed around my period, or my mother says I'm really miserable around my period, or my mother thinks there's something wrong with me. That's often the conversation that then generates, let's talk about how our mood changes. And it's real. And I often use the description of kind of the light bulb or Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, this feeling of like,
right,
I'm really nice and very happy all day long until somebody seems to turn that switch on, and then I'm a beast.
And you know what's so funny? I am 47 now. I still get my period, not as regularly as I used to. Even though I knew rationally and intellectually that I became sort of a different piece of myself, a different version of myself during my premenstrual cycle, I still, most months, would have a moment of, my God, why am I so anxious? Why am I so tense? And I wonder, does that come from the external influences of society, because there's so much shame in saying like, oh, she, people, I've heard people say like, she's a real bitch right before her period. But if there was more information on the science, how the hormones really legitimately, scientifically are proven to affect us, would we, even as women, be able to recognize it more and support it for ourselves?
You know, it's so interesting because I could say I went through the same experience. When I was menstruating, I'd have these moments or days where I'd say, I'd act out and I would not connect the two.
This is what I mean.
Incredible. No, I think there's an amnesia or something physiologic that is so pronounced.
It's like a reset every time.
Exactly. And so you kind of forget. And, we're also, again, we are such survivors, us women. So we go through this event every month and then we kind of forget it. It's kind of the amnesia that women often describe around childbirth.
I was just going to say there's definitely childbirth amnesia.
Yeah.
Because there's no way.
I know what you're going to say.
There would be so many children on the planet if we did not totally check out and shift that memory into a different part of our brains. Not just the childbirth, but the first year.
That's right.
Slip it back there in the files where nobody can access it.
All of a sudden it becomes a romantic memory.
I love you.
That's right. No, so we do not have data that really tells us, or an understanding of the physiology that tells us how that amnesia occurs. But I have just heard way too many women tell me about this shift, this light bulb, this light switch, whatever this is called, that happens to them, that they have to then say, whoa, okay, this is what's going on. Like, how did I not anticipate it? Particularly if you are one of those women who could say, okay, every 28th day at 3 p.m. I get my period.
That's how I was. Every 28th day at 3 p.m.
Wow.
or, at some hour.
Right.
And I would say I would get my period on the minute.
Wow. You're like some women.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore. But you would think that the 4 days before, when I started swelling up, that I wouldn't, or I had that one the pimple period. I still get the pimple period, by the way. And now my husband will go, I think you're going to get your period. And I'm like, where is it? But, you would think that I would have had this awareness because mine was so regular that those experiences would not affect me or bother me or confuse me. And yet, lo and behold, they still did. And forgive me for taking this into another direction, but even when my husband and I met 15 years ago, and he would say, I noticed like your butt's a little bigger and you have that pimple under your nose. Like, I think you're going to get your period. Instead of me thinking, that is so sweet that you are a man that grew up in this environment, that you are aware, and like you go out and buy me tampons. But instead, my reaction was like, what? Why are you pointing out my pimple or that my butt looks big? Ego, ego, ego.
Amazing,
it's just because the shame that's around it.
That's right. Well, it feels, I think we can't help but feel like it's a criticism.
It does feel like a criticism.
So our defenses go up and say, well, wait a second, this isn't my doing. I didn't paint the pimple on my face. Why are you making me so self-conscious?
Fault.
That's right. That's right. But I think you're right. I think the overarching theme, if you will, is that shame around bodily functions and particularly female bodily functions.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm going to suggest to all those moms out there and all those dads out there, anyone taking care of a girl who might have her period soon, is create a beautiful package that's just in your house that contains pads and tampons and maybe the underwear and maybe some books, just anything that they don't feel like they have to be sitting on the toilet wondering, what the fuck do I do with this blood?
And making it accessible that it's their private time. If they want to, because, my daughter, I bought her one of these really fantastic books and I was so excited to give it to her. She opened her doors, she saw it, she rolled her eyes. She grabbed that thing from me and she like slid it under her bed. It was like, Mom. And I thought, fine, but you know what? It's there. She knows where she put it. And if she doesn't want to talk to me, she can go look in that book. And I feel like my job is done here. So, well, not done, but this moment anyway.
Absolutely.
So don't take it personally if they're rejecting the conversations. The support is still noted.
That's right.
And will make a huge difference.
That's right. In fact, I think you and I have talked about this in other contexts around, when kids are ready to take in information, they kind of let you know. And they also let you know when they're not ready to take in information.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So if you provide them with the resource, chances are they'll use it in bits and pieces and over time in a way that they feel safe in taking in the information.
Right. And, discreet tends to be a good thing. Don't hang like tampons on your Christmas trees or.
I have to tell the most ridiculous anecdote.
Please.
I was walking my dog the other day and I ran into a gentleman I see on a regular basis where we walk our dogs together and we've become chit-chat friends. And he is a veterinarian. Oh. And he told me he was just at his office performing surgery for a dog who had eaten 2 tampons.
Oh, 2?
And that this isn't, I said, really?
Doesn't surprise me, actually.
Well, I was a little surprised I didn't know it. And he went on to say, this is not an uncommon event.
This doesn't surprise me because if you think about the smell of the blood, it's like the iron and the meat smell. And if someone is not using flushable and they're in the trash, I get it. Yeah, okay.
As a gynecologist, maybe I just never went there.
Of course.
I was distracted by all the other issues.
You don't have patients coming in saying, like, I swallowed a tampon. Although, have you seen them? The, sports athletes shoving them up their nose when they have, and, running down the field with the string hanging out and everything. Why can't I run down a field with a string hanging out without someone making a horrible comment about it? Fine, it's my vagina, not my nose. But
I don't know. Maybe you should and see what reaction you get. It would be interesting.
Summer is coming.
Summer. You might even color the string.
Hopefully you will bail me out.
Oh, you got to have a sense of humor about this.
Yes, you do.
You just have to, because it's not always funny and it's not always easy. And our girls don't always respond in the way that you want them to. No mom, no ritual, and I hate puberty. That you have to respect that everyone processes this experience differently.
Yes, and I joke at this age, but in my younger years, my period was an incredibly terrifying, painful, difficult moment of every month.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Were you alone in that journey? Did your friends, did anyone talk about it?
I have to share this story, actually, because this is one of the most beautiful stories of a friendship of 2 women that I still hold near and dear, who have been my friends since elementary school. My mother was very ill with cancer at the time when I got my period, and she was in the hospital at Cornell in Manhattan, and I was in New Jersey. And I came home and I had to call her on the phone in her hospital room and say, Mom, I think I got my period. Because also, I think that's what this is.
Right.
You know, it was, she wasn't around at those weeks. And so leading up still, I was dealing with the feelings alone. And she said, this is wonderful. I'm so proud of you. Do you have what you need? And I said, no, but I can go to the store. And I remember hanging up the phone and called these friends who were together. And I said, I just got my period. And they said, let's go to the store right now. And they're still
warms my heart.
Took me to the store. One of them bought me tampons. Because I don't know, I wanted to go right to tampons. I didn't like the idea of bleeding out. One of them got me Motrin. And then we got Slurpees or something that you do in Jersey. But I had these beautiful women and still have them in my life. And that's so important. You mentioned earlier how you had this group of women. And that's something that I do share with my kids. And I encourage other people that when things happen as a woman, you don't know that you have support. And then all of a sudden, these people come out to help you, come out of the woodwork or out of the forest, if you will. And those women will be there. And so accept them when they offer help. Absolutely.
And that's true whether it's your first menstrual cycle, whether it's your last menstrual cycle.
An unwanted pregnancy, whatever it may be.
That's right. That's right. And not everyone is lucky enough to have that circle of women around them. But I guess I'd also say sometimes, more often than not, all it takes is one close friend to support you. So leaning on each other, supporting each other, spreading truths and helping each other understand the mythologies around our body and the bodily functions is so important.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. That just made me think the stomach discomfort during your period, diarrhea, all these things that happen that you don't know are a part of it. That could happen, not always, but that can, because people don't talk about it.
I have to tell you something, and it's not maybe radio proper etiquette.
Well, too late now.
I used to call it the SPV sign.
The SPV sign.
Shit, piss, and vomit.
Totally.
All at the same time.
Yes. It's like an exorcism.
I tell you, it was awful.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad you said that because
that is not a technical term.
That was not a clinical perspective.
That was an Amy perspective, designed when she was 21 years of age.
But I appreciate you saying that. Because I've had, I see it where I'm like, oh yeah, I used to have diarrhea all the time when I was younger. And then someone will say, oh my God, really? Me too. I thought something was wrong.
Yeah.
It's like, no, your body just wants it all out.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes this is associated with problems like endometriosis.
Yes, absolutely.
Sometimes this is just genetic. Sometimes it is just bad luck, if you will. But if you're suffering, if your daughter is suffering, please.
That's not normal.
No.
That is not to be ignored.
No. I was later diagnosed with endometriosis.
So was I.
Yeah. So now I get it.
Yes.
So I didn't then.
Thank you for saying that, because I do think there are some that believe that this is normal. This is suffering. No, there's some normal, but if something is really painful, go get it checked out.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have this thing, if all goes well, for a long period
Ain't
of your
that
life.
The truth? Yeah.
And so you don't want to be dealing with that every month for 30 years.
That's right.
Ugh.
And we're not talking about one day.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's the relentless red tide.
Yes.
Oh, well, it's just something we all have to figure out. But if we can have communities supporting us, helping us with this, that's why we're here to talk about it.
Yes. And you can dial in or email us and ask if you need some connections or support or questions. We are here, you for the medical perspective, me for the psychological, and, that's what we're doing this for.
Absolutely. So, Allison, I wanted to read a list of some books that I came up because moms will often come into the office and say, what do I do?
What do I get?
How do I prepare? Are there books? And this is just a very short list. There are really a lot of books out there.
Yes.
But I particularly like some of these.
Okay.
So Roby Harris writes a variety of books, and a lot of these books are kind of in these cartoon animated fashion, which are very user-friendly for a young person.
Yes.
So she wrote one, It's Perfectly Normal. There's another one called Will Puberty Last My Whole Life?
Oh, I don't know that one. That's beautiful.
Isn't it? I know.
Because that just really struck me.
Yeah.
That's really great because I bet you that's part of the thought process of these kids.
Absolutely.
Like, am I going to feel like this awkward shifting? Am I going to go through this metamorphosis forever?
Right.
I'm going to go get that.
Growing Up Powerful. Hello Flow, FLO, the guide period. This is so awkward. So these are some titles that I want you to know about. And again, if you type in puberty, if you type in how to talk to my daughter, you'll get an abundance. And I would encourage you to try to look through them and think about how your daughter likes to read books. Does she want to just see the text? Does she want to see cartoons? What is going to appeal to her intellect and her emotional state? Yeah.
I'm just going to add to that briefly. When you give the kids these things, if they don't seem like they want to talk, you can also just drop the line of like, look, if you ever want to ask me anything, there is nothing you can say to me that will stop me from loving you or make me uncomfortable. Like, I am here to take care of you.
Right.
That just planting that seed makes a huge difference.
And as a mom, particularly, if you can say, I went through this, I'm going through this,
100%.
that this is the nature of being female. And again, to any dad that might be listening to us, please honor this, love this.
Yes. Celebrate it.
Exactly. Be truthful about this. Don't run away from this, because then you're just demonstrating or modeling avoidance and shame.
And then you lead them towards a man that would treat them like that.
Oh, yeah.
I had to put that in there because it's sadly true.
No, it's so true. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah,
Allison.
We're going to come back for that.
Yeah.
But it's true.
Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience today?
No, just want to say remove the shame.
Remove the shame.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Allison and I love to end Vulva Views with a quote. And there are so many out there, but this is the one that I came up with today. And this is by Unknown. Who knows who said this, but I think we would all agree. Quote, Dear tampon commercial, when I'm on my period, I don't want to wear a white bikini or do a backflip. Sincerely, real woman. I don't know about you, Allison, but all those commercials and media out there, it's just like, let's just celebrate this experience with white clothing.
The slow motion cartwell on the beach. Although
Right.
maybe that's what I'll do this year. That's amazing.
Oh, all righty. Well, thank you for joining us. I want to thank our producers, Jen Hammoud and Maddie Rosenberg, and I want to thank the Epicurean for having us. We love this store. You should come visit it in Rhinecliff, New York. And please share with us your ideas, thoughts, concerns. Thank you for joining us on Vulva Views. This is Amy.
And I'm Allison. Thank you for listening.